Okay, let's approach this problem like this. The Big Bang is not biblical, period. This video should be titled Dr. Turk Defeats Himself by Attempting to Make a Case for God because he doesn't understand the science and logic he's attempting to use. And I wish Frank would debate me on this. Let's listen to what Frank says.
One of the great tragedies of the modern West is that people have been indoctrinated into the belief that to believe in God is to believe something against science or against logic. In this video, Frank Turek is laying out a case during a debate that he has with Christopher Hitchens, and he lays out the science and the logic that actually defy unbelief in God and the case that can be made through inference for God. With that being said, let's dive in.
I'm going to give you evidence in an acronym, SURGE, S-U-R-G-E. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on it because I think even Christopher in his book on page 65 says the Big Bang is the accepted origin of the universe.
So right from the start, Frank acknowledges that Christopher in all of science says that the Big Bang is the origin of the universe. This does not agree with the Christian creation of Genesis because the order of how things were created do not match. The Big Bang, if the Big Bang is correct, then stars came first, and if creation is correct, then the earth came first, followed by the sun, moon, and stars.
S stands for the second law of thermodynamics, that the universe is running down. As that sun is up there, it is burning out. Ultimately, we will go to heat death, as Christopher has said in his book. Well, if the universe is eternal, that sun would have burned out a long time ago, but since the sun is still up there, and we still have energy here, the universe must have had a beginning. The second law of thermodynamics also says that ordered things go toward disorder.
Okay, now this just doesn't make any sense at all. If the universe is eternal, then the sun would have burned out a long time ago because the sun exists. The universe must have had a beginning. First of all, if science is correct, then we know that the sun is a younger star than other stars. So the fact that the universe is eternal has nothing to do with the fact that the sun exists. If the universe is eternal, the sun can exist, and then it can die, and then it can be reborn and exist again over and over again. So this is one of the dumbest things I've ever heard Frank say. Now, to understand the second law of thermodynamics, we have to visit the first law of thermodynamics, which says energy in a closed system, which the universe will be a closed system, cannot be created or destroyed. It can only be transformed. E equals mc squared agrees with this statement. So the decay of physical matter is simply matter going back to its source, which is pure energy, and that's eternal. This is God.
It affects the school. We have to paint the walls. We have to put gas in our car. The second law of thermodynamics also affects us as human beings. When you get older, the second law of thermodynamics is seen by the fact that we all get dresser disease. That's when our chest falls into our drawers. See, that's the second law of thermodynamics. The U in surge is the fact that the universe is expanding, discovered by Edwin Hubble in 1929. Hubble deduced that if the universe is expanding, if you watched everything in reverse, you would see it collapse back to a point, mathematically and logically, to nothing. So the universe exploded into being out of nothing.
Okay. The expanding universe is based on the red and blue shift of light, and we know that can be manipulated by changing the medium in which light travels. This is why the C of E equals mc squared is described as the constant speed of light in a vacuum. For example, light travel at a different speed in air than water, because water is more dense than light, or is more dense than air. So the expanding universe can be an illusion because science cannot say definitively what the density of the empty space is between galaxies, and science admits that only 5% of the universe is made of visible matter and 95% consisting of dark matter and dark energy. So we can explain the red and blue shift without the need for the universe to be expanding. Frank then ends the statement where it collapses back to a point that is mathematically and logically to nothing. Sorry, this violates the first law of thermodynamics and the law of conservation of energy, because energy cannot be created or destroyed, it can only be transformed.
The G stands for the great galaxy, the R stands for the radiation echo, discovered by accident by Penzias two scientists working at Bell Labs in Homedale, New Jersey. They discovered basically the radiation afterglow, or the remnant heat from the initial Big Bang explosion. The heat is still out there. It's just a couple of degrees above absolute zero. Now, good theories predict future discoveries, and they said if the radiation afterglow is out there and the Big Bang really did occur, we ought to find very fine temperature variations among the radiation afterglow. So they sent up a satellite in 1989 to circle the Earth. It's called the Kobe Space Satellite, to measure this radiation afterglow. And for 3 years, they found nothing until they tuned their instruments just a little bit more precisely and found that there were temperature variations in the radiation afterglow, and they were down to 1 part in 100,000. George Smoot, the leader of the expedition, said, if you're religious, it's like looking at God. Stephen Hawking said this is the greatest discovery of cosmology, perhaps the greatest discovery of all time. Those temperature variations allowed galaxies to ultimately form, so we could ultimately be here.
Okay, so the radiation afterglow. Now we're getting into the fun stuff, and I'll grant Turk a pass on this one because he, like myself, is not a physicist. However, in July of 2012, the Large Hadron Collider discovered the God particle, better known as the Higgs boson. This is this is a subject that can be discussed for hours all by itself. But long story short is the Higgs boson is where all the subatomic particles of particle physics comes from. They also discovered the Higgs field was created in the creation of the Higgs boson, which is an energy field. Now, the lifespan of the Higgs boson is very short, something like 10 to the negative 22 seconds. But nonetheless, it's where all of the subatomic particles come from. This is what better defines the radiation afterglow, because after all, creation is the assembly story, or the creation account is the assembly story of creation, and this explains how God made all the parts, which are according to physics and out of energy, which is not nothing. That means it didn't come out of nothing. You had to have something to make the stuff out of.
CERN stands for Einstein's theory of general relativity, which says time, space, and matter are correlative. You can't have space without time. You can't have time without space and matter. And in effect, it says that the universe came into existence with space and time together. In other words, once there was no time, once there was no space, once there was no matter, and then bang, out of nothing, the universe exploded into being.
Okay, I'm just going to stop it there because now he's not making any sense. All right, so he skips over the G and goes to E, saying that this is Einstein's general relativity. Frank then incorrectly says this tells us that time, space, and matter came into existence from nothing. This concept is incorrect and then proven in Einstein's special relativity with E equals mc squared. Here we understand, because according to the first law of thermodynamics and the law of conservation of energy, that energy cannot be created or destroyed, but only transformed. We see the equation for how much energy it takes to transform energy into physical matter, because the only requirement for matter to be physical and move through time is that it has mass. This takes pure energy and transforms it into all the physical matter we see. Now, this begs the question of can we have timeless physical matter? And it turns out that we can. This is a photon, which is visible matter. That's not necessarily physical, but it's matter. And because it has zero mass, it's not affected by time. So mass and time come into existence together because energy and space were already here. Therefore, the universe did not logically and mathematically come into existence out of nothing. Rather, it was transformed from the energy that eternally existed. Last I checked, energy is not nothing, and if something exists, then space also exists. Now, if you want to approach this purely on logic, then Frank defeats himself by saying God created the universe out of nothing. This means God is nothing and therefore does not exist, because if God exists, then nothing can't even be an option. If you argue that God is not time, space, or matter, he is still something, so you cannot logically argue from a nothing viewpoint. Now, I got a book coming out on this very topic, in the next few weeks. So please like and subscribe for future videos and details about the book. Also, Frank, if you ever watch this, I would love to talk with you on this topic or even do a formal debate. Thank you very much. Have a great day.